keep forgetting I gotta empty the trash on that thing every time. Is it good? Okay. So, to recap, Monday, and sorry I didn't bring my book, so I'm having to read it off the picture. The recap, so we talked about how we should stop trying to impress God, right? Stop trying to impress God. You can't impress Him, okay? Like, Jesus is our model. If you want the mind of Christ, you need to try to mimic or imitate the things Jesus did. Alright? And in Matthew chapter 5, Jesus goes so far as to say, committing adultery isn't how you sin. As soon as you saw her and you lusted after her, you sinned right then. You never had to actually act on it. Just your motive caused you to sin. So if we take that into consideration, and it's hard, especially for men, but take that into consideration. That's how deep and how serious this is. Like, your thoughts turn to words. Your words turn to actions. Your actions will eventually become a habit for you. Right? So it starts up here. Stop trying to impress God and start studying His character through the life, because that's why Jesus came here, right? Jesus, God Himself, came to earth in a human body so we can relate to Him. So that we know how to act, know how to walk, know how to talk, know how to treat others. He had to. If He didn't, like any other religion, He lives outside of our space and time. We have no idea how to relate to Him. So He came in human form, right? And then died for our sins. So stop trying to impress God. Can we really live a life that's considered righteous? Yes. Right? Your motives, your faith, your belief. That's where it starts. Okay? By improving your personal motives, you can live a righteous life. And we went into Matthew chapter 5. We started in verse 20, where He says, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Right? You will never enter the kingdom of heaven. And then He goes on to talk about murder. Murder is a sin, but it's anger that causes you to act on that. And it's the anger inside of you that is the real sin. Right? Then we went on and talked about adultery. Adultery is a sin, but it's the lust that you had inside of you. That's where you sin. Right? Divorce, and we talked about how adultery and divorce have the same consequences and the same effects on the people that are involved in those things, right? We were talking about that last week. That's where we left off. I finished up with divorce. Even though they're two different things, the effects, the consequences, the impact that it has on you the same, right? So then he goes on to Matthew chapter 5, verse 33. Victor, you going to read that one? Go from 33 to 37.
Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is His footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. All you need to say is simple yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one.
So he's saying, like, okay, so just so you guys know, I don't know if it talks about this in here. It might. Let me see. It does, so we'll get to that. Like, this, what we're reading, this Bible, this God's Word, this book, the last book was written in like the year 95. Culture was completely different then, right? Right? So a lot of times when we read this, it's speaking to us because it's timeless. But at the same time, if you really, really, truly want to understand it, you have to look at it from the perspective of who was writing it and who it was written for. Oaths, back then in Jesus' time, you could say, I swear on the temple that I'll give you that 10 pieces of silver. If you'll just loan it to me, I'll give it to you in a week. And how many times have we done that? Bro, come on, man. Loan me that $25. I swear I'll give it back to you tomorrow. I swear on my mom I'll give it back to you tomorrow. In the first century, in the time of Jesus, if you did that, like, you were fooling the other person because you can't give them the temple. You can't give somebody your money. They really believed in this stuff back then. If you swore an oath on the temple or on something that you literally couldn't give somebody, you just got smoked. You just got smoked. Because you can't give them what you swore an oath to. Right? I don't know if you guys understand what I'm trying to say. He breaks it down in here a little bit. So, because some oaths are considered binding and others are not. And the Jews of this time, when you spoke this way, some of them knew right away whether it was binding and some of them were not. Specifically, a binding oath were those oaths that were made on collateral that you were obligated to pay. So if you said, I swear on my car that I'll give you the $25 tomorrow, you're obligated to pay the car because it's yours. I swear on the church that I'll pay you the $25 tomorrow, you're not obligated to pay it. It's not binding because the church ain't yours to give. The guy should have never made the deal with you. You smoked. Does that make sense now? Am I making more sense now? Back then, this is how they saw that. So when God or Jesus says, stop making oaths. Stop saying, I swear on my house, or I swear on the temple, or I swear on this 10 pounds of gold, or stop swearing on anything. Don't do it. And it's somewhere, where's it at? He says, let your yeses be yeses and your noes be noes. Is that in Matthew? Okay, he says, let your yeses be yeses and your noes be noes. You don't have to swear on anything. So what's happening here is, in God's eyes, making an oath is completely unnecessary. That's why he's against it. It's unnecessary because, as a human, what you're trying to do, when you do that, like, how many times have you been like, man, loan me $20, loan me $20, bro. Come on, loan me $20. And then when you get super desperate, you're like, bro, please, I swear on everything, I'll give it back to you. I swear on everything, I'll give it back to you. All of a sudden, now that you're swearing, they're supposed to think that you're being more honest. Right? Right, Joe? It's laughable, right? Like, that's what our human minds are saying. Well, if I tell him I swear or I promise, then they'll believe me more. I'm not like all the other times I didn't swear, I was lying. This time I'm making an oath, so I'm being honest. God sees that as evil. It's kind of weak. It's wicked. And he said, this is what Pastor Mark Moore says. I love this. Oaths are an attempt to differentiate situations that require true honesty. Does that make sense? When you make an oath or you swear on something, it's your attempt to show somebody else the difference between a situation where now you're truly being honest. Jesus calls us to be honest all the time. All the time. You shouldn't have to differentiate between the two. Does that make sense? You shouldn't have to be like, well, I swear this time, bro, I swear this time. You should be honest. Jesus is saying the intentions of your heart should always be on the side of honesty. Right? That's why he says, let your yeses be yeses and noes, noes. Noes. Oh, wait, noes. Let your nose be a nose. In God's eyes, you shouldn't have to try to convince me that this time you're being honest. That's what he's talking about right here. When you make an oath, what that tells me is, previous to this, when you asked somebody for $20, you obviously didn't pay them back. Because now this time you're swearing on everything holy that you're going to pay me. And I'm like, wait a minute. Why would you have to do that? Why would you have to do that? We shouldn't have to do that. Right?
Hey, you should say, hey, can I borrow $20? I'll pay you back when I get it.
That's true and honest right there, right?
If they say no,
they say no. And let it be. Don't go, well, man, come on, bro, I swear I'll get back to you.
Because that's begging. I mean,
and you're trying to convince them of your honesty.
Because you're not, they ain't gonna believe you to start with.
Has Pastor Tom come and talked in here to this group?
No.
Dude, he said something that's so powerful to me, especially coming out of the life that we came out of. He said, you cannot talk your way out of something you've behaved your way into. You can't talk your way out of, man, I swear, come on, bro, I swear, just this time I'm being serious this time. You can't talk your way out of, dude, you burnt me 3 times already. Right? I loaned you my PlayStation. I loaned you that $20 that one time. That one time I sent you down the road, you're supposed to come back. I didn't see you for a week. You can't talk your way out of something you've behaved your way into. Our behavior should be true and honest all the time. All the time. Dude, it used to break my heart, dude. I'd tell my boys, I'll go play basketball with you later. I'll come watch one of your games later. I just can't do it right now. Later, never. When I was living that life, dude, I was not a man of my word. If I told you something, you better not believe it. Ever. That's sad. Because now that I'm clean, I've been clean in February, it'll be 4 years. Well, I've been a Christian in February, 4 years. I guess I've been clean a little longer than that. No, because I got high in jail. I've been clean 3 years. It'll be June. In June, it'll be 4 years. All right? June of next year will be 4 years I've been clean. It's still to this day, like, people don't believe that I'm not that guy. The pictures I showed you guys. They don't believe it. Even though they see this, they still don't believe that I'm not a jerk. You know, or a liar, or a thief, or whatever they thought I was. Whatever I was, it ain't they thought I was. You know what I'm saying? So God says, swearing on something is completely unnecessary. It's ridiculous to do that. In normal situations, you can fudge the truth or lie outright. How many times, everybody in here has been locked up, you can be whoever you want to when you go to jail. Right? Especially if you go to a jail in the county you're not from. You can be whoever you want to be. You can lie about everything. Dude, I was in B pod for 27 months. I was in that same pod. And this one, I can't remember his daggum name, this tall, skinny guy. Oh my gosh. He had done it all. He done it all. He was Obama's cousin, Clinton's brother, daggum, like, he run the Asian triad, he was MS-13, I mean everything. You couldn't say nothing that he wasn't part of or did, right? And I'm like, dude, you can't even spell your own name. He had his name tattooed on his back and it was spelled wrong. I was like, oh, whoever put the tattoo on him was drunk or something, or you told him the wrong spelling. What do you mean? You ain't done, like, you know what I'm saying? He's like, when they arrested me, I had $60,000 in cash. I was like, what'd they do with it? I don't know, man. I don't know. That's just how they are. I'm like, no, it ain't how they are. They tell you if they seize your stuff, it happened to me. We're taking this. This is property of the state of Tennessee. You know what I mean? It don't just disappear. They have to cut their body cams and stuff. You know what I mean? You can lie outright. You can fudge the truth. Like say, and this happens a lot. Say you're with somebody and they do something. Later on, their story becomes your story. You ever met anybody like that? Yeah. Like this, whatever it was you did is something now they tell it as if it was their story, right? So it really happened, but it just didn't happen the way they're saying. They fudged it, right? You can do those. You can lie outright, or you can fudge it. But under an oath, like magic, it requires us to be more moral than normal. So if we swear by something, or we make an oath on something, all of a sudden now we're being more moral than normal. Like we're trying, again, this is like we're trying to, I'm trying to convince you, well now my ethics have kicked in. Hey, borrow your car. What? I swear I'll bring it back. My ethics have kicked in. Terry Street. You know, like, come on, man. God, I mean, some of this stuff we should be picking up on easy because we live this. This stuff's happened to us a million times. And Jesus is telling you, you live that life and it's been done to you and he's done it to others. Quit. Stop. Quit playing. That ain't what I'm calling you to do. Let your guesses be guesses and your no's be no's. You don't have to swear on nothing. Right? Be a man of your word. If there was women in here, be a woman of your word. Women try. Jesus points out that it's nonsense. Either we're honest or we're not. Let your guesses be guesses or your no's be no's, right? I like this right here. By giving an oath, it gives a false impression of trustworthiness. A false impression. When we swear by something, we're trying to make the other person think that we're being as trustworthy as we can. But it actually gives a false impression, don't it? Think about all the time somebody swore to you they was going to do something. First thing you thought, man, I know you ain't about to do that. That's your first instinct, right? So it does. It actually has the reverse effect on the other person. It gives a false impression of trustworthiness. So then he starts talking about in the first century how oaths in the Jewish culture, some oaths were binding and some were not, right? If you named collateral that was actually yours, you were obligated to pay. Eric, go to Matthew chapter 23, verse 16. Read from verse 16 to verse 18. I want to know what that says. It's quoted, it's quotations in here, but I don't know the verse.
Go ye blind guys, you said whoever swears by the temple that is nothing. Whoever swears by the gold of the temple is nothing.
Okay. In the first century, I'm glad it said that. In the first century, some oaths were binding and some were not. If you swore by the temple, it wasn't a binding oath. You tricked the other guy if he went with it, because you can't give him the temple. If you swore by the gold in the temple, he tricked you because guess what? That gold has a price. And if you don't do what you say you're going to do, they force you to go in there and buy the gold and give it to him. Does that make sense now? The difference between a binding oath and an unbinding oath? Did you read all the way through 18? Is there more to
No,
it?
that was just 16.
Read 17 and 18.
You fools are blind, which is more important, the gold or the temple that sanctifies the gold. And whoever swears by the altar, that is nothing, but whoever swears by the offering on it, he is obligated.
Same thing there. If you swear by the altar, you can't give them the altar, they won't sell you the altar. But the offering you can. Heck, they were selling offerings out in the lobby of the temple. Right? That's the difference between a binding oath back then and an unbinding oath. Now, we own, like, if you're streetwise enough and somebody says, man, come on, bro, you know as soon as the words come out of their mouth whether they're going to keep their word or not. Pretty much. You know what I mean? Right?
Yeah.
Dude, let me use that, bro. I'll bring it right back. Like Lance Carter, he's like, man, let me use your chainsaw. And I'm like, dude, I thought for sure I'd never see it again. He brought it back. Broke. He started on go, I went, what the heck, chains missing off of it? The daggum! We just brought it back. You know what I'm saying? It was my dad's, but it was mine, but at the time it was my dad's. I've got it at my house now. I bought a new chain, and I got it running. But still, that's kind of the deal right there. You know, as soon as they say it, you're like, I'm gonna take this and pawn it, bro. You know what I mean? You know? Luckily, he didn't. He brought it back, bro. You know. So back then, if you swore by something that it was impossible for you to give or to pay, it was considered an unbinding oath. And if the other person was unwise enough to agree to whatever it was, they were done for, right? I have to shift through pictures. So, if you didn't have the legal expertise to tell the difference between a binding oath and an unbinding oath, you were smoked. Right? So that's why Jesus specifically talks about oaths at this point. But again, it's timeless for us. So it speaks to us today. Because when we were out there in the throes of our addictions, we were not a man of our word. And how many times, come on man, how many times you swore on your mama's grave, you loan me that, give me that, do this for me, I'll pay you about it. I know I did, a million times.
My mama should have died 20 times.
That's what, I know I did it a million times, bro. Oh, I swear, bro. I swear. You can trust me, man. Like, have I ever screwed you over before? Yes! Really? Did you just ask me that? But they're so high, like, I guess not. I'm like, yeah. God, you forgot again. I'm just saying, we live that life. So that speaks to us now. As men of God, let our yeses be yeses and our noes be noes. We shouldn't have to make oaths. We shouldn't have to swear by anything. Right? You should be able to, like, doing that, and my mom and dad are starting to come around. Like, it's the craziest thing, bro. 3 years ago, even when I was in this program, I go to my dad's house, he'd shut his garage door. I mean, I'm for real. Like, he didn't want me around nothing that was seriously valuable to him. You know what I mean? He's got a safe in his room. My own father. Because of my drug addiction, my brother's drug addiction, and my sister's drug addiction, I had to actually literally buy something to store his things in that, like, you have to dynamite to get it open. You know what I mean? And he used to tell me all the time, I should be able to set a $100 bill on that table and walk around for a week and it'd be there when I come back. And in my head, I'm thinking, you do that. Stick that $100 bill on the table. It's going to be mine in an hour. You know what I mean? As soon as I convince you to go into the room. You know? But he was right. He's right, man. It don't matter if it's your dad or your mom or your neighbor or a stranger. Right? God calls us to be honest all the time. All the time. And once you start behaving that way, like I can go to my dad's house and be like, Dad, open the garage. I need in there. Dude, I can't tip it, man. That's like a gold mine in there. You know what I'm saying? For real. Like there's a gold mine in there. There's an $80,000 Chanel sitting in there. I'm like, nah, you know what I mean? He can't walk, he can't catch me. But he trusts me enough to go in there. You know what I mean? That's amazing. It's amazing, the shift, and it'll happen. Dude, if you don't have to go out of your way to try to convince people that you're trustworthy. Just do it. Right? James chapter 5, verse 12. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. So, I know he doesn't say it in Matthew, but Jesus' half-brother James. Dude, if y'all ain't never read the letter of James, please do that. Read it. It's only, 5 chapters? Yeah. You remember 5? 5 chapters. It'll probably take you 20 minutes to read it. It's powerful. It's powerful. So, Matthew Marshall, turn to Exodus chapter 21. And Brandon, you're going to be doing Matthew. We're in Matthew chapter 5. You're going to be doing verse 38. But Matthew Marshall, I want you to read Exodus first. When you get there. Exodus chapter 21. Verse 24. There should be a correlation between these two verses. Yep.
An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a hand for a hand, a foot for a foot, a burn for a burn, a wound for a wound, a bruise for a bruise.
Is there anybody in here that's unfamiliar with that? For real, come on guys, if you don't know what he just read, please raise your hand. I'm going to explain it anyway. Okay, this is Old Testament right here. And what he's saying is whatever you do, I'm going to repay you equally. If you pluck out my eye, I'm plucking out your eye.
Or both.
Or both, right? Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, burn for a burn, theft for a theft. You know, like in the Old Testament, a lot of things that they did were against the law. You got stoned to death. But their thought process was, if you do this, at the very least, that's what's going to get done to you. Right? Read Matthew chapter 5, verse 38.
You have heard the law that says the punishment of much man should be injury, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth.
So, Jesus is saying, like, this is Old Testament stuff, and I know you've heard it. So read verse 39.
But I say, do not resist an evil person. If someone slaps you on the right cheek, offer the other cheek also.
Who? He said, this is what I say. So, Exodus chapter 21 is the law of Moses. Does anybody need this out here? Too late. You should have taken a picture of it and put it in quicker. You got an eidetic memory? What, your memory? You're like a daggum octopus. 2/3 of their brain power's in their arms. For real. You want to know how come I can still remember things? Up high. I'm serious. That's a real thing.
Hey, we heard this joke this morning.
60% of an octopus's brain function is in its tentacle, in its arms.
What do you call two octopuses that look the same?
I don't know.
Identical.
He's a dad, ain't he? He knows how to take girls is. He's telling dad jokes left and right.
I'll find some more.
You got more?
Oh.
What'd you do? Google them things while you was at work? Quit using people's phone.
Yeah, hold on. I'll screenshot them.
I love you, bro. Identical. Y'all ever seen the movie My Cousin Vinny?
Yeah.
Joe Pesci?
have.
That lawyer? Sorry. Anyway, so the law of Moses says equal reaction or retaliation. That's what it says. Equal retaliation, right? Jesus, on the other hand, in verse 39, says if somebody slaps you on the right cheek, turn your other cheek. Now, let's go back to first century. When you're quarreling with somebody back then, they didn't smack you like that. They didn't. They smacked you like this. So what happens is, you're fighting, dude backhands you against your right cheek. He says, turn your left, because now he's got to smack you like that. And everybody around him goes, whoa, 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 bro. What's your problem? Now he's putting something into us. Right? Does that make sense? That's why he wrote it like that. That's why it says what it says. Because back then, they didn't smack you like that. Ever. They smacked you like this. Oh! How like pizza. And when you went, come on, bud. He had to do this. How powerful is that?
Yeah.
Everybody around him's like, man. Now they know his real intentions. To degrade you. To down you. To hurt you. Right? That's why Jesus says that. In first century times, you had to make them smack you like this. That's why he says when somebody wants your cloak, is it cloak? Read verse 40. Is it 40?
Yeah, if you are sued in a court and your shirt is taken from you, give your coat too.
If your okay, stop right there. If your tunic or your shirt is taken from you, give them also your cloak or your coat. So what he's saying is if somebody's suing you, you got to take your coat off, give them your shirt, because they just sued you for it. He said, while you're naked, give them your coat too. This is how you're leaving. High and dry, naked in front of everybody. So now the rest of the people see exactly how you're being treated. So instead of reacting equally, Because the silver rule says, it's in Matthew, I think, too. It's in maybe 2 of the Gospels. However you wish others will treat you, do unto them. Not however they treat you, you treat them. However you wish they would treat you, that's what you do to them. So when they start treating you like crap, let everybody else see their true intentions. And that actually promotes your motives. Right? So the idea is simple. Don't just submit to your oppressors, but overcommit to them. That way you'll expose their true motives, and the crowd will see their true colors, and generally it will cause them to come to your defense. That's powerful right there. That's good, man. Like, for real. So, like, and it's hard to do, man. It is, especially for men, because we're aggressive. Testosterone and all that good stuff, we're aggressive. But when you can control your emotions right well, that you can be like, I don't want to say like meek enough to let the other person's aggression and anger show through and show their true colors. You've about got this thing worked. Because self-control is the last fruit of the Spirit, right? It's the last one. Everything's in order for a reason, generally. Pretty much all the time in the Bible. If it's in the order it's in, it's because of a reason, right?
It's hard to grasp.
Self-control is about the hardest one to grasp. And Jesus is teaching us this right now with the law of Moses says equal retaliation, and Jesus says, like, nonviolent resistance. What's that remind you of? Anybody in here think of? What else can you think of that was a nonviolent resistance movement?
To not hit someone when you feel like it.
Right, but in like, think in your past or from your schooling, from teaching, what have you known or seen or heard of that was just like that, that's very effective? Who? Can anybody think of one person, specifically one person that got shot in Memphis, Tennessee? Nonviolent resistance. And look at what it did to our country. Our country saw the true colors of all the people that were trying to oppress them over. They would go and just sit down. Sit down. Hundreds of them. And I'm telling you, bro, they'd send people in there beating them, and they're just sitting there. They ain't doing nothing, they ain't even talking most of the time. Nonviolent resistance is what Jesus calls us to do. I don't know if I can spell all that right. Nonviolent resistance. Now, don't get that twisted, because there's 2 times in the Bible where Jesus kicks over tables in the temple. Right? There are instances where Jesus himself is like, oh, no. You know what I mean? But it was a violation against God and the Holy Spirit, not a violation against another person, that drove into that. That truly drove into that. Right? And there's an instance where he killed that fig tree. Right? That's kind of violent. He went, you'll never produce another fruit. They went back the next year and they're like, look, it's still dead. And he's like, of course it is. You know, if you're not producing fruit, guess what? I'm cutting you off. Nonviolent resistance is what he's calling us to. So we talked about getting hit, which is verse 39. We talked about giving them your coat and your shirt, right? Because it might leave you exposed and embarrassed, but it drives home the point of your oppression, of the person that's trying to degrade you, right? Brandon, read one more, verse 41.
The code commands you to carry his gear for a mile, carry it for 2 miles.
Okay, again, first century. At this time, in if you're walking down the road and a Roman sees you, okay, so all the Romans were in control of the known world. They were in control. They were the authority placed above them. I don't give a daggum if they were just a regular Roman. If you were a Jew, they were an authority placed above them. But at that time, a Roman soldier legally could make you carry his gear for a mile. At this time in history, he could go, come here. This thing weighs 100 pounds. Put it on. And like, they don't eat no protein. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, I guess they do. They eat goats. You know, they eat lamb. But like, they're not big guys. You know, the Jews probably aren't very big guys. They eat fish and bread with no yeast. You know, so he's like, here, carry this. They could force locals to carry their bag for 1 mile. But by going 2 miles, you could show that the true intent of the soldier was not because they actually needed help, because these dudes trained day in and day out. They didn't have PlayStations, they didn't have cell phones, they didn't have anything else to do except wake up and fight. That's it. That's all they did. His true intentions wasn't, bro, I'm beat down, please carry this. It was, you subject yourself to me. I own you, more or less. Carry my stuff. Wash my clothes. Do my dishes. And it showed their true colors. It showed their true colors when you had non-violent resistance. That's really hard for us to do. Anger is a real thing for men. That's why it was number 1 on this list. Like in the six examples in Matthew chapter 5, the very first one was anger. There's a reason why it's the very first one. Anger is like the hardest emotion to control. It is. Even if you try to stuff it down, dude, it comes out. One way or another. Yeah. It comes busting out of there. So, like I put on there Monday, obviously they're not on there again, but there was 3 main points that we were going to see. Jesus calls you to deeper morality, not broad. He wants you to dig deep. He wants you to find the root. Why do you think you go to counseling while you're here? Because drugs ain't your problem. Newsflash. Alcohol and drug use is not your problem. It's not. It's something else inside of you. For real. No, they did them in Maryville. Have they ever done them here? They're good. Yeah. Yeah. Drugs, like addiction, drug use, these are all defense mechanisms. They're ways that humans use to cope with real issues, with real voices from your past that are powerful and telling and controlling your life. And I don't care how serious the situation was. God forbid, whether your mom got shot in her head right in front of your face, or whether your mom divorced your dad. 2 totally different, intense situations, right? Same effect. Same effect. Same effect on your heart and your brain. Think about that. It doesn't matter how intense or how serious a human being sees what it was that actually happened to you. It's how intense it was for you individually. Right? Drugs and alcohol ain't our issue. There's something in there that caused us to turn to drugs and alcohol. Even if you had a good life, dude, I had a good life. For real, I did. I mean, for the first little bit of my life, we was poor and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? East End projects, West End projects. Finally, mom got a job, like, I don't know, I was maybe 8 or 9 when my mom finally started working. And if it wasn't for my aunt and uncle had an extra house because my uncle owned like 7 gas stations. For real. Dude was making like $200,000 a year in 1990. And they're like, well, we'll rent you this house. 7 years later, he sells it out from under my dad. But that was when finally we were moving here. But anyway, you know what I'm saying? Like little things like that, dude, like moving from place to place affects you. It affects you, bro. When you're that little, you can't never settle down. You don't ever have anything concrete to hold on to. You know what I mean? Like your parents. If your parents are never there, I don't know if y'all have ever heard the stats or not. 70% of the people that are either in jail or in prison, men or women, 70% of all inmates come from a home where there was no father. 70%. That's crazy. That's crazy. Put a dad in the picture, and 70% of the people that are locked up get free. Think about that. That's how impactful situations that happen to you, especially at a young age, affect you. But now you're in a position to, especially if you got kids, or you think you're gonna have kids at some point, most likely. You know what I mean? Like really, like most people end up having kids. I don't know very many people that don't, and if they don't have kids, it's because they physically couldn't. They were infertile or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Now you're in a position to make changes. Like I was talking about how we need to stop this, and it ain't about just what you're doing, it's about what everybody else is doing. But how effective are you if you don't make a stand and vocalize what's right and what's wrong when you see people doing the things that aren't wrong? I mean, that aren't right. That's what Jesus calls us to do. That's what he says, make disciples. Make a stand, be a man. Me and Pastor Steve were talking about at the gym. He was like, you have to, he's like, I'm a little aggressive about it. I'm like, yes, you are. He's like, you know, you're really aggressive. He's like, I'm a little aggressive about it. But we have to make a stand and say, what are you doing? What are you doing when you see it happen? What are you doing? That's not what you're called to do. That's not right. You got to take what you learn and actually put it into practice. You got to start opening your mouth. Silence is a killer. Right? So, anytime that you're unsure about anything, read Matthew chapter 5. For real. It's the Sermon on the Mount. It's Jesus's famous, probably his most famous preaching moment or teaching moment. And if you think about it, he probably did it more than once. He probably preached that same message more than once. Because if you don't keep going over it and going over it and going over it, you're never going to learn, right? Rote memorization is the best way for anybody to remember anything. R-O-T-E. R-O-T-E. Rote memorization. And the way that happens is like when they give you your TDOC number. 586 Say it so many daggone times. You say it over and over and over again. Now you know it. You'll never forget it. That's rote memorization. You say it over and over and over. 586
You forgot your 2 zeros.
You don't need the zeros. What are you doing right now? It was a fig tree. It wasn't a Joshua tree. It was a sycamore fig tree. And he cursed it, so he goes up to it, and it's like a year or two old. It should already be producing fruit. As a believer, when you say, I believe in Jesus, a year or two from now, you should be producing fruit that proves the statement you just made that you believe in Jesus. And Jesus' whole point of this was, look at this tree. It claims to be this, but it produces no fruit. There is no proof that it is doing what it's supposed to be doing. There's no proof. There's no love, kindness, joy, peace, gentleness, endurance, right? Or long suffering. There's 9 of them, right? Self-control is the last one. There's either 7 or 9. I think there's patience. I can't remember all of them. Sorry. But he's not seeing any of that. So and in John chapter 15, he says, you are a vine. I'm the main vine. You're grafted into me. And if you don't produce fruit, I'm cutting you off. Cutting you off. Dead. You're done.
So the tree is more like this. Like
The tree was a example of a Christian that wasn't producing fruit. And he says, if you don't produce fruit, I will cut you off. And that's what he did to the tree.
You don't see me going to church for Indians, I actually believe in the light.
Exactly. They're not producing the fruit. They're dead. And me and Steve were actually talking about that. He was talking about once saved, always saved. Jesus said, if you claim to know me, and then you don't produce fruit, I will cut you off. He said, I did it to the Jews, and now I'm allowing the Gentiles to be grafted into me, so why wouldn't I cut you off? I did them. My holy nation, my kingdom of priests, the people that I chose to spread my name, I chopped them off. That's real right there. That's real, man. In other words, you can't go around just claiming, oh man, I love Jesus. Oh, I love Jesus. And then go to the bar every night. Then go gambling. And I mean, for real. Go gambling every night. Go womanizing every night. You can't claim to know Jesus and to be a believer and do things that are against His Word. Because He's going to cut you off. It's real. That's powerful right there, ain't it?
Yeah.
And it is, ain't it? And he also says somewhere, he says, the person that has come to me and has experienced my glorious riches and the joy of knowing me and walking in my presence and then turns from me is impossible to reach. It says that in the Bible. Is impossible to reach. You will never reach them again. And they have a retrobate mind. I wash my hands. So please be very careful if you're starting to believe this on once saved, always saved. It specifically says there's a man or a woman, they believe in me, I'm blessing them, they're enjoying it, they're like, almighty God, they turn from me, you'll never save them again. They're unsavable.
That's in the new covenant.
That's in the Bible.
It's in the new covenant.
Which is what we live in.
Yeah.
Okay.
I get. Yeah.
What do you mean you guess? It is. Don't guess.
Look,
It ain't a guessing game.
I was raised on Old Testament, so.
Old Testament says the same thing as the New Testament. They cooperate each other.
Yeah, but if you're saved, I mean, yeah, if you're saved, you're going to heaven.
If you're
If
saved,
you don't go around killing people.
it don't matter. It don't. Jesus is telling you it don't matter your actions. It matters your heart.
Yeah. Okay.
It matters your heart.
Okay, but if you're not done nothing wrong, like murder 15 people.
That's what the Bible says, though. The Bible specifically says, if you've been saved and you've been born again,
Yeah.
and then you turn from me, you're unsavable.
Okay. Well, I've turned from him before, so.
But you're coming back, right?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Come on.
You know.
Come on. Pastor Steve said it to me today. At the gym, man, I got a lot of information from him today. 3%. You're the 3%.
Oh, God.
3%. 3%. There's what, 7 billion people on this planet?
It's like the soil, right?
Yeah.
The soil's back there, rocky ground.
So out of 7 billion people, 210,000 would come to know Jesus and actually save. Only 210,000 out of 7 billion. That's scary. That's scary.
Yeah, it's like that. That narrow.
That's scary, ain't it?
That narrow.
Right? It's powerful, man. This stuff is real. It's powerful. And Jesus is telling us exactly what we need to know. He's given us the examples that we need. The words that we need. Like, the Bible is, like, it's awesome because it paints a picture of what not to do and a picture of what you should do. It's not one or the other, it's both. It gives you everything you need. There ain't nothing you can't find in there. Right? Victor?
Yeah.
He's on there. What's he doing?
Trying to stay away.
Like, seriously, just the other day, you was having an issue.
Yeah.
And I got that book. It's Bible Promises. It was right in your table of context. What's the
1
issue?
Peter 5:10.
15 verses. Amazing, ain't it? How the Bible can answer any question you got. And you know.
I got something deeply pondering on. You said you said that it's anger, you know, that's a sin
Yes.
more than the action. So
Not more than the action, it is like, because the anger comes first.
yes.
Most of the time, your anger is first, and then it'll happen again before you really act. Sometimes, unless it's just a random explosion event, you know what I'm saying? Most of the time, you're mad over a period of time before you do something about it. So the anger's always first. They're both sin. Both of them.
And so, I mean, the thoughts, I mean, you know, I guess, so the thought of it's a sin.
Yes, that's what Jesus is telling us. Yes, in black and white. It's right there in your Bible. That's what he's telling you.
Okay.
The motive in your heart to have anger or hatred towards somebody is a sin.
You know, what about, you know, like, what, it's not what you hear that defiles you, it's what comes out.
It's what comes out of you. It's the true intentions of your heart that defiles you. That's what it is. And he's specifically talking to Pharisees when he says that, because like they go up in there in the synagogues and they look all shiny, but they're hollow. They're a shiny piece of gold, but they're not a solid. When you put it on the scale, it don't weigh nothing because they're empty. They're hollow. There ain't nothing on the inside. Right? It's what's on the inside of you that defiles you, not the outside. That's where he comes in. That explains pretty much all of this motives and morality and your true character. Remember on Monday I wrote on there, Jesus wants to change your character. He wants to change your desires. He wants to change what you like and what you don't like. Out there, when I stand out there with you, Victor, I said, in today's time, think of it like this. He Bluetooths to you. God will Bluetooth to you and upload his video into you of what he wants, of what he likes and what he desires. And all of a sudden, you want the same thing, you like the same thing, and you're like, where the heck did this come from? You know what I mean? Like, some of the things that I do now, I'm like, I've never done this before. Why am I doing this? You know? I went to the daggone makeup store with my wife. And I was looking at stuff. She's like, you don't have to go with me. I'm like, I'm going, baby. Did I just say that? She's like, you want me to drive? Sure. Did I just say that? You know what I mean? No, I don't want you to drive. Yeah, I'll never drive on time. I never used to do things. I'm serious. Like I opened the door for her. She's fast though, dude. She tries to get to the car before I do. She does it on purpose too, I think. She sees me go to the door, she'll get to that. I'm like, quit it. Let me open the door for you. I never did that. Never did that. All of a sudden I like doing it. All of a sudden I like. And what's crazy, there's always confirmation. There's always affirmation from God. I'm sitting here doing these things. And I'm on this thing called crosswalk.com. It's a Christian website, right? It's a Christian website that'll ding me on different articles and stuff. There was an article, not even a week ago, about how a man and a woman can be successful in their relationship. And one of the things specifically he said was, go to the store together, I don't care what store it is. How about that? That's God saying, listen, don't put the makeup on, but you can go. It's cool. You know, I went and bought her a hair curler. Like I'm at the store looking around and all these women are looking around. I'm like, which one of these is better? You know what I mean? I don't have no hair. You know? I'm like, which one of these is for volume?
Yes.
Like, what the heck? Who does that? I bet you do.
Going in there trying to find me some keys.
Some balm.
Some
You
heels.
and Russell shopping.
You got your wigs in here. I need a toupee.
Hey, man.
My Donald Trump is.
Man.
That'd be fun. Have that thing with.
Flapping in the wind.
Yeah, I daggone smile.
Dude, you ought to get one of them, like just rat tails. Just bald everywhere, just right in the back.
Oh, I can grow one. That's about the only thing I can grow.
Come on.
I had a nice one. I had one. When I was little, I had a bullet.
Quit playing,
I did. I had a mullet. There's a bowl cut.
You can
mullet.
grow hair in the back of your head.
Yeah, just the back of it. That's it. Hey, look. Look, it's there.
I guess you might be able to. Let that sucker grow, bro.
That'd be.
No,
we
I'm
want to see it,
I'm
man.
letting this grow. Get that off.
There
Let
you
the
go.
back grow. Let it match.
Take
Only
your
thing
hat
I
off.
can
Let's
get's a rat
see.
tail.
You can grow a beard in the back. You can have a back beard.
I got back hair. Back hair grows faster than anybody.
I love you guys, man. I do, dude. I love y'all, bro. For real. Alex, you'll pray us out?